Hi, I'm Annabelle.
And I'm Amy, and welcome to Escape Purgatory, a podcast in which we rewatch Supernatural and then talk about it in the hope that we can finally escape this show.
Join us each week and leave comments on upcoming episodes, and together we can escape Supernatural Purgatory. Alright, this week we are talking about The Usual Suspects episode. I always do this, I don't know why. Season 2. Episode 7. How many of these have we done? Almost 30? And I still can't get it right.
Almost 30, yeah.
Oh dear. It's got an 8.7 on IMDb, which is actually, it's pretty high, and I think it's quite deserving, actually.
Yeah.
It's a very different format to like the rest of the show.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was written by Catherine Humphreys and directed by Mike Roll. So a couple of different people, which is maybe why it has a different feel to it this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if they brought people in specifically who maybe had a bit more experience writing crime. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I didn't look up what these other people have done, but...
They're not particularly well known for crime TV, but they did a pretty good job on this one. So before we started recording, I was saying to Amy that, like, there's no way that I could do a podcast about a crime show, just because. So we're both watching like crime shows outside of Supernatural right now. I'm watching Cold Case from about the same. It started a little bit earlier, than Supernatural, but it's around the same time. And there's a lot of crossover actors, like all TV shows. In that time, Meg is in it. Like she's the main character's like sister for a little bit. So just like watching that, I'm like, this literally is a case a week story. There's no like sort of overarching stories, and in this there are 2 to 3 character arcs, and that's it. Like, the arc lasts for a few episodes and then it's like never mentioned again. I mean, obviously there's people out there because everybody finds interest in something, but I don't think I could break it down like we do for this.
We couldn't do 2 hours on it, or closer to 3. You guys don't know how much I cut out.
So many tangents. So many tangents.
Oh, okay. So, the recap this week, I quite enjoyed it, actually. I liked the recap of all their various crimes.
All the identity frauds and like...
Yeah.
I think they must have gone through at least, I would say 75% of their fake identities they went through.
Okay, Mr. Berkowitz.
Federal Marshals. Environmental Study Major.
I'm Father Simmons, U.S. Wildlife Service.
Nigel Tufnell.
Dr. Jerry Kaplan.
Reporters, art dealers, rangers, students, fraternity brothers.
Homeland Security. Pretty illegal, even for us.
A good portion of them. The Homeland Security one stuck out to me just because they added a little bit extra. The one where he's in the hospital and he's like Jerry something. I can't remember what his name was, but that. Remember. And it also had focused on skin as well. So it had some pretty cool moments from that. Like the shapeshifter is looking at the camera. That's always going to be my favorite shot from that episode. One of my favorite shots from that episode.
Oh yeah, and the last line of the recap is Dean saying like, "How many times do you get to see your own funeral?" And it's still not funny. Still not funny.
Still not funny. Not even remotely.
So we're starting this week in Baltimore, and it tells us that we're in Baltimore, Maryland, and it.
So. Sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry. As soon as I saw it was Baltimore, I knew exactly where the story was going. Only because if you ever hear a news story about the Baltimore police, you know it's because they were corrupt in some way. Every single time the Baltimore police come up, it's because the officers have planted drugs or the officers are taking bribes. It's really, really bad. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know exactly where this is going.
Maybe it gives us a hint as to our antagonist in this episode. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So we start in a police station for once, and they're talking about aliases. Like they're going through different ones. And they kind of intersperse this, so it's kind of difficult to talk about the first kind of section because it flits between a lot of different scenes very quickly. So we see the police kind of talking through like they're going by this alias, and then we see a raid on a motel, and it's kind of cutting between that and someone in an interview room. But what it all leads up to essentially is the police arresting Sam, and then us finding out that Dean is in the interview room. And Did you notice, because I watched it twice, the detective is interviewing Dean and saying, like, what charges he's up for. And then before the title card, Dean turns and looks at the camera.
Yes. He looks straight down. I literally wrote, can you not, sir? Because, like, I don't want to be looked at in my soul. Thanks very much.
That's amazing.
It's like the first of like 2 instances where he looks straight down the lens at you in this episode.
Yeah, and this feels like, because it has, I think there was one other instance of Dean specifically looking into the camera, I think maybe in Bloodlust, but this one actually felt like it was breaking the fourth wall. I feel like Bloodlust didn't, but this one was almost like he's looking at the camera because it's almost signaling to the audience, shocked by this. Like, do you know what I mean?
could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I didn't catch that, but no, thinking back on it, if he winked at the camera, I wouldn't have been surprised.
Yeah. It was like signaling to the audience, you know,
Gotcha.
it's us. Yeah.
Yeah.
This feels like the first one, but I don't know.
You know, it could very well be the case, because if you think about it, this is a completely different setup to any of the episodes that they've ever done so far. So, you know, it does feel very much like a beginning of a regular 6 p.m. cop show. Mm-hmm. It's in a major city. It's, you know, all this other stuff. And then it's like, haha, no, it's not. Look, it's us.
Yeah.
Fooled ya.
I did love it. I think it's great. It's so weird to me when they break the fourth wall like that and kind of knowing that they're... Okay, getting a little bit off track already. But later on, we find out that there is a fourth wall to break. Like, I know that's true for all TV shows, but in Supernatural, the fourth wall actually does exist in their universe as well. Mm-hmm. If you get where I'm going with this. So it's so strange when, before they know about the fourth wall, them breaking it. If that makes right. I'm getting really meta here, and it probably only is making sense in my own brain. But look, Chuck, the whole thing with Chuck just makes a lot of these moments. It's brainworms, just brainworms. Yeah. Like
Definitely. You either end up with a smooth brain or a wrinkly brain thinking about it.
Oh, so true.
Some days I wish I could get smooth brain, but I think it doesn't always work out that way. Yeah. So after the title card, we come back to Sam, and he's actually in quite a nice interrogation room. It's almost like an office. It's got like windows and stuff. Sam looks genuinely surprised at being accused of murder. Yeah. Which is good, because, you know, he knows that he would never actually murder a human, so that's
not on purpose.
Not on purpose, that's right. Well, I mean, so the time he's murdered a human is because there was a demon, so he didn't really murder. Well, he didn't murder a human. But anyway, so the detective, who we find out much later in the episode, is called Diana. She is sort of going through who they are and explaining. She knows who Sam and Dean are, and that they're trying to find... Well, they know that John's missing. And I was like, wait a minute. Did they not get him a death certificate? But of course, they gave the hospital a fake name.
Yeah, and
when
they
were
burned
there.
and they burned his body, so they wouldn't have needed it for a funeral home.
Right.
And like, you're right about the genuine surprise on Sam, because this felt like the second instance of that breaking the fourth wall.
Murder?
You sound genuinely surprised. Or are you that good of an actor?
It was almost like she was saying it to Jared rather than Sam. That's how it read to me. I don't know. This episode was weird for me.
So here's another thing. This is this is going to be a huge tangent. It's got nothing to do with the episode. But she mentions again that she knows what's happening with Sam, and says, you know, very strange. Your mother died when you were 6 months old, and then about a year ago, Jessica died, and then you disappeared. So time is not adding up. Time is completely not adding up in this universe.
Yeah.
And like, it got me thinking, they could have leaned into this so hard with Chuck. Because he could have been like, hey, have you ever noticed there's not seasons? Have you ever noticed that time doesn't really go the way you think it's going? They could have had something there, and they didn't. They really didn't.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, because that that totally could have happened. I don't know. Maybe they could have shown almost like an in-between episode, if that makes sense. So actual what happens in between the end of one and the beginning of another, and the skipping of the seasons and the skipping of time, like suddenly appearing in another place almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is kind of like that. I mean, what we see on camera, and this episode really solidifies this for the first time, I feel. What we see in Supernatural is chosen to be shown to us by Chuck. And I know they didn't write this way here. Like, there's no possible way. But it certainly feels like it, because there's a lot of references here to plans they have and things they've talked about that we've never seen, never had hints of. And it kind of all adds up as to like, oh, so actually what we are perceiving with the show is very much like one perspective. And that perspective is Chuck's.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think they missed a big opportunity on that one, just to be like, how have you never noticed that I've been running the show?
Yeah. Literally,
he could have said that. Can you imagine how Dean would have like reacted to that? That would have been an amazing scene.
Yeah.
Anyway, I see it in my mind. Some of the conversations that happened in 1519, I'm just going to switch out to what was said, what I just said. I've decided. So anyway, Sam explains that he's on a road trip with his brother because he's trying to, like, get over Jessica's death. It all sounds very plausible. But so have you noticed that his respect for the authorities no longer exists?
Yeah, I did notice that.
Do you think this is Dean's influence?
Yes. And because I had written, like, Sam is acting like Dean here in difficult situations. He's being cocky, he's being confident, he's being not rude. He's not being rude, but there's definitely a lack of respect.
It's attitude.
He's kind of acting like, you guys are ridiculously stupid for arresting me. Like,
So I'm taking a road trip with my brother.
How's that going for you?
Great. I mean,
We saw the second largest ball of twine in the continental U.S. Awesome.
Also, this is the first episode that I really noticed that Sam no longer has a fringe.
Yeah.
Or bang, so he's like pushed them aside. I think he'd started to do that in the last episode, but he wasn't really in the last episode, so you couldn't really tell.
I read somewhere on Tumblr, and like, sorry if this was your post, I'm not crediting you because I don't remember who it was, but saying that Sam's bangs were kind of a almost like a mourning period for Jessica, and that as he kind of gets over her, his face is more and more revealed. And I thought it was amazing. So thanks whoever made that post. If I find it again, I'll link it in the description. So like the detective's going on here, and she's kind of being very sympathetic to Sam and saying like, it's, you know, you're a good kid, like you were pre-law, like it's not your fault that Dean's your brother, you don't get to choose your family. And like they're clearly trying to paint Dean out to be the bad guy here, and like Sam's just been like taken along for the ride as like an unwilling accomplice, which is maybe the case actually in season 1.
You're not wrong. It's some of those instances for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's definitely on board now, and you see that actually, like he really is backing up Dean here. They're so obviously like a unit who are working together as the detective's talking to him. You know,
she's really trying to get him to turn and say like, Dean did these horrible things. I don't think they've actually said what he's done yet.
It's right at the end of this interview. Yeah,
I thought so. And I was trying to think, like, is there any Sam in any season that would have actually turned on his brother in this situation? And apart from Soulless Sam, I don't think so. Not even in season 1.
No.
I don't think he would have, as much as he may not enjoy, like, especially in season 1, enjoy the hunting and all of, like, the illegal stuff that they do, he still respects Dean as family. Now, if it was John, I don't know.
Do you think it would have just been like, yeah, it was him who did a murder. Bye. Bye. Peace out.
I don't know how much. I mean, I don't know how long he would have held out. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
He might have stuck with it for a little bit, but like I think after a while, he would just been like, "Nah, you're good. Yeah, he did it."
Yeah, I think so. I think here, if they were gonna go down for this, they would have gone down together.
Yeah.
There was no way that either of them were going to turn on each other, and at no point in this episode is any kind of indication that either of them were going to turn on each other and point the finger. Yeah, and I like it. It's so cohesive. Yeah, it's great.
No, they're definitely on the same wavelength now.
Yeah,
which is good. Which is really, really good. I do like to see that.
I enjoy it when they work together. Actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Detective Diana says here that all about the murder that took place in Skin, and you know the fact that Dean's technically legally dead in St. Louis. But it said, here's one thing that they didn't follow up on. They said that they have gone there to dig up the shifter's body.
Right.
They're like, to figure out how he faked his own death. But it's not mentioned again this episode, and I wonder, what did they find?
I know, because I think in supernatural lore, however they died is how they stay.
Yeah. So
they would have found Dean.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah.
Well, actually no, yeah, it would be, because let's say it was 6 months ago. Who freaking knows? who actually knows how long ago Skins was in this universe? Because it was episode 3, so
closer to a year.
Maybe it's closer to a year, so maybe like 10 months ago. I don't know how bodies decompose, but I'm pretty sure 10 months is not enough time for it to like really not look like a human anymore.
Yeah.
So they probably could tell that
it just begs the question, like, how close a match is a shifter? Because they would have to do dental records. Okay, I can see them matching. Fingerprints, yes. But does
the skeleton,
and the DNA? Does a shifter's DNA change? Anyway, thinking too much.
Okay, just going by the name of the episode, which was just Skin, and the fact that the shifter, sorry for the description, peels off his skin to then reveal the person underneath, it may very well be that it's literally skin level. That's it. So like, obviously in terms of a TV show, they use the same actor, but I feel like if this was a reality, there would actually be differences in that, like, the teeth might not actually be the same and the heights might be different. So the shifter might only be able to change the skin and nothing else. So like its height is the same height throughout all of its, like,
I guess we could do like a scientific thing on this, because if you tattooed someone, right, and then you got a shifter to I'm completely making this of course. Okay. If you got a shifter to shift into them, right, if it's see, how would that work? Would the shifter still have the tattoo? No. If it's like genetic, then no. But if it's just like a surface level thing, then maybe yes. Anyway, thinking way too much about how shifters work. But like, okay, no, was one more. You know when Sam and Dean get the Enochian carved on their ribs by Cass? Like, would a shifter have that? Would they have that carved into their ribs? I need to know, like, what did they find in that grave? Because if they'd done any kind of DNA testing on it, they would have found out it wasn't Dean, I guess. Maybe this is solved later on, and I'm just like...
Yeah, I feel like, because the FBI gets involved. Yeah. I do remember that.
So maybe it's mentioned then, like, this actually didn't match your body. Okay. All right. Ran over.
It's fun to think about, for sure, because we're never going to know the answer because they don't exist. So we can put whatever we know. It's fun to put on like our own theories on it.
Oh yeah, so the actual point of this interview is they find out that Dean's accused of killing someone called Karen, and they need Sam's help to actually convict him. Sam starts to tell this story about how they really know Karen, and what went down.
Mm-hmm. I liked this twist that they did for all of these like interview sections, because this is very much like typical cop procedural show. Like they have the witness or suspect, and they get them to start talking, and then it shows what they're talking about, so it turns from storytelling to visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Whereas in this case, he was saying that the husband who was the first one to die, Anthony Giles, he was a friend of their father and was served in the military. But then it cuts to like what actually happened, and they're just like looking in a newspaper, and they're like, I think it was Sam that said Anthony Giles, and Dean's like, who?
My dad and Tony Giles were old friends. They were in the service together.
Anthony Giles.
Who's Anthony Giles?
It's basically showing that Sam's a massive liar, and that he lies really well. Oh, okay. So in the flashback where they're talking about Anthony Giles, I keep wanting to say Giles because it's spelled the same as Giles from Buffy, but Anthony Giles, they say that he was found with his throat cut in a room when there was no fingerprints, no way in or out. Now, okay, this is a direct reference to an X-Files episode. And I paused it then because in season 1 of X-Files, I believe, there's a killer called Toombs who can fit through vents and things, like he's kind of stretchy, and he was doing these like locked room murders. And I paused it and wrote down, this is an X-Files reference, unpaused it, and then they immediately reference X-Files.
What do you think, Scully? Want to check it out?
I'm not Scully, you're Scully.
No, I'm Mulder. You're a redheaded woman.
So, who do you think is Scully and who's Mulder out of the two? I personally think that Dean is Scully and Sam is Mulder on occasion, because every single time that Sam brings up a case, it takes him a lot to convince Dean that it's actually a case, which I feel is, from the episodes that I've seen of X-Files, always seems to be the case between the two of them.
I disagree. I agree with Dean. I think that Sam is Scully because he tends to be more of a skeptic than Dean. I feel like Dean's more ready to believe things are supernatural than Sam is. I think Sam takes more convincing that it's not just something random.
I can see that too. I feel like it just split between the two of them. I don't think they're like... Yeah. Especially in the beginning, like I think back of like, I can't remember the exact episodes, but there's a few episodes where like Sam really has to be like, no, it's a case, it's really a case. But then in this season, there's also been a lot of that too.
I'll put up a poll when I publish this episode: who's Scully and who's Mulder? I mean, Dean thinks Sam's Scully because of the hair, but. Yeah.
You're a redhead woman, I think that's what he says, right?
Yeah, exactly. He just wants to be Mulder because he thinks he's cool.
Yeah, I think so too. And Mulder's a bit of a rebel in the FBI. He's not a bit of a rebel, he is a rebel in the FBI. That's why he's stuffed in the basement.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch. I think I've watched like half of season 1 at least. I've watched quite a fair bit of it. I need to go back and watch some more. This is probably one of the first few times that Sam actually engages with the pop culture reference and doesn't like blow it off, because he actually's like, no, I'm not Scully.
That's true, actually. He does that a lot in this episode, like actually gives a pop culture reference back.
And that kind of leans into your like what you said earlier about like how Sam is acting like Dean. I feel like if there was a band, like, you know, those wristbands, it would be like, what would Dean do? And that's exactly what he's thinking.
That's so true. Well, oh no, I was like, oh, it's because he's his big brother, right? And he's like, probably a bit scared in the interview room and thinking, how can I put on a front to show that I'm not scared? Oh, I'll act like Dean, my confident older brother. Oh, it's nice. So Sam says in the interview room they went to see Karen because they were, like, they knew her, you know, they were friends. But it turns out they were just actually posing as insurance guys. And it shows Dean really badly interviewing this woman.
I know. So bad. He gets, like, gleeful when So they're doing their usual, like, we're insurance agents and we just need to ask you a few questions about the death of your husband. And then Dean just cuts in. It's like, did he say anything strange or act in a strange way? And she's like, what? No, he said you might have a nightmare. And then, like, as soon as he was like, nightmare, latched onto that and was just like full on staring her in the face, like, tell me all your secrets.
I had to remind myself they were posing as insurance guys and thinking, why would an insurance person ask you what your husband's nightmares were? And like Karen responds like fully, why are you asking me this?
Mm-hmm.
I realised who I recognised her from.
She is played by Keegan Connor Tracy.
That's right. And she is in Supernatural again, twice, as two different people. And also, she plays the Blue Fairy in Once Upon a Time, and that's where I knew her from.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, so with the nightmare, they find out that it was a woman stood at the end of his bed that he was seeing.
And she had red eyes.
Yeah, red eyes, which is super creepy. And then we cut back again to the interview, and the detective saying that they saw two men breaking into Tony's office, and Sam plays that off as like, oh yeah, we were getting a picture for Karen and she gave us a key, and then again cuts to Dean using lockpicks on the door. Like, it's so I love this whole sequence.
So they enter the office and then it sort of cuts, and it's obviously time has passed because Dean sort of closes a drawer and he sort of walks back into where Sam's on the computer, like, trying to hack in. As Dean's walking into the room, he has a piece of paper and it says Dana Shops all over it, just line after line after line. You know, he makes a Shining reference.
Clearly.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
They start looking for Dana Schultz in the files because they're like, well, this has to be somebody. But they don't really find anything. Sam's hacking into the computer and Dean sort of just sits opposite him and is just like popping his lips and like mouth and stuff. Sits for like 2 seconds. He's like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
And for some reason I really like that. Like, you would think they sit in a car for hours.
Mm-hmm.
They would be used to sitting in silence. But I guess because Dean's doing something like driving, there's also music playing all the time.
Yeah.
So he probably is not used to just sitting there.
Can't sit still with his own thoughts. Impossible.
Yeah. Definitely this Dean as well that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so he's unable to sit still, so he goes and says that he's going to go talk to Karen again. You know, Sam eventually went back to the motel and Dean was still going to see Karen. And the detective says, like, oh, he just went to go visit her. Like, I've heard the 911 call. Obviously, it then cuts to what Karen was seeing. So, and it's fairly typical Supernatural fare. Like, she's sat by herself. I like that she was wearing glasses and then she took them off and she heard a noise and then couldn't see anything and it was all blurry. And I was like, I can relate.
Yep. Definitely. So the way that I read that scene is that she saw the shadow move, then she took her glasses off. I was like, no. If you have glasses, you're not taking them off because you think you saw something in the corner. You're pushing them further up your nose. You're making sure they're like sat correctly. We both wear glasses. That's why we both know this.
That's true. You definitely would not know, especially if you were could see as blurry as she does, which is probably similar to my vision, to be fair. Like, why would you ever? So she goes and has a look around the house. I thought it was a fax machine to start with because I forgot that they were phasing out by then. But a printer upstairs starts printing off the Dana Schultz business, and then she sees the scary woman as well.
She does call 911 and she's like, someone's in the house. Then the ghost is behind her, and there's not really like a horror movie scream. There kind of is, but not really, because the phone cuts off because of ghost. Yeah. Ghost there. Dean arrives at the house and starts knocking on the door. One thing I don't get is why he breaks in. There's no real reason to think that she would be in danger at this point, right?
That's true. Again, I think just being impatient, but I guess if they think that it's a vengeful spirit, which, I think they're already thinking that it's some kind of ghost, it would go after her next, makes sense, I suppose. But he didn't hear anything inside to sort of justify breaking into her house. Like, there were no screams or like furniture breaking or anything, So
It was literally just like, he knocked, she didn't answer, let me break in. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And he didn't, so, you know, Dean usually when he needs to get into a house because there's trouble, will kick down the door. But this was definitely, he bent down to like use a lockpick to get in.
Yeah, he definitely was, it was definitely a breaking and entering situation.
Would be horrible because if she was there like unharmed, that could have gone horribly wrong.
I mean, it does go horribly wrong, but like, how could he explain that? I mean, I guess he goes in and he tries the lights to start with. Maybe if they had worked fine, he would have just left.
Maybe.
But who knows? So, yeah, he breaks in, he tries the lights. He does eventually find Karen, and unfortunately she's been killed by something, and there's a big pool of blood. Mm-hmm. And he also finds the printout as well with the Danish Alps.
And he also sees like that there's rope marks around Karen's wrist.
Yeah. And then just as he's touching her to look at these rope marks, the police come in.
Of course.
I would say here, like, we normally see Dean quite cocky, but I think in this moment he does look genuinely scared, actually.
Yeah. I think he realizes what he's just sort of, what it looks like.
Yeah.
You know, he's touching a dead body of a stranger, essentially.
Of a house he just broke into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it definitely doesn't look good. And also, like, yeah, I mean, they know that it's just been broken into, surely. Mm-hmm. She's recently dead, the house is undisturbed, and he's the only one in the house, so of course.
Yeah, they've got him pretty much like, yeah.
Okay, question. Because we know who did it.
Yeah.
In this episode. How long has she been dead for?
Oh, good point.
Because where's the killer?
Yeah, how come Dean didn't see the killer, actually? Or some kind of evidence of them? That's a really good point.
They're definitely leaning into this ventral spirit aspect. But when you find out who it actually is, this scene doesn't actually really make sense.
You're right. I mean, she can't have been dead that long because the like ghost appears to her first, right? Mm-hmm. And then she's still in the same... This is the weird bit. She's still in the same room that she saw the ghost. Wouldn't you like freak out and like run out of the room?
So the only thing that I could think of, so I'm gonna give away what
fine, yeah, do it.
Killer is. So we find out the killer is the other detective. We haven't actually. He's briefly in the beginning. His name's Pete. So he's a human. He's the one who's doing the killings. Mm-hmm. The only way that I could see this working is that he's already hiding in that room. So he'd already broken in, maybe through like a window or something, killed her, and then went back out the window.
But why did he tie her up? Oh no, the rope marks were a part of the ghost thing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm getting confused. But yes.
that's the only way that I see this kind of working, that the detective was already in the house.
Yeah.
And killed her and then ran.
Yeah. Creepy. Yeah, that makes sense. Now we know the whole story. We go back to Dean and he's in the interview room and they're kind of talking about him behind the two-way mirror. So there's these two detectives, there's Diana and Pete. And they're just saying that he's just making a load of wise-ass remarks, which, yes, in character. And they do say that Sam and Dean's story matches perfectly, which begs the question, why does it? Because does this mean that for every case they go on, they do kind of think that this could happen? So have a story to tell.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, the story that they tell is very, very generic. Like, the man is about their father's age, so they both could say that it was a friend of their father. They both know that they have to talk to the wife, so they're going to pose as friends, the family. So they may not even have to really discuss what they would have to say. They just know, like, a plausible story is this.
Yeah.
So we're going to, like, I don't know. They may discuss it beforehand. I don't know.
I mean, let's be real. They're essentially con men. So they've had a lot of practice at this. So I guess you're probably right. It's probably just like, this is the most plausible story. That's what the other person's going to say because I know them so well that they're going to come up with the same plausible story. And it's all very natural. So weird. They're so natural at lying. Like,
that's not a good trait.
No. But they're kind of saying that they need Sam to turn because the stuff they have is all circumstantial. They don't have a murder weapon. They like don't have a motive. Like, why would Dean even bother to kill this lady? It turns out that the guy who was killed was a lawyer and was a friend of Pete the detective. So that's kind of why it seems like he's going fill in on this. And then they kind of leave them for a bit, and we find out because they kiss by the vending machine bar.
Yeah.
That the two detectives are dating in some capacity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this whole B plot of like the detectives are dating and they know the murder victims and all this kind of stuff, which is important later on.
Yeah. It is very much, again, like a procedural cop show, but they kind of gotten past the like, will they, won't they stage. It's like, yeah, they will. So the funny thing about that kind of interaction to me is like Diana sort of comes on to Pete a little bit and he's like, oh no, not here. And then they go to a vending machine. You would think the vending machine would be the most popular place in the entire building, right? That doesn't make sense. Everybody wants to go get a snack or a drink. I'm not sure which one it was. I think it might have been a drink machine.
Yeah.
Everybody goes there. Like, it's not...
It's not secret. It's not secret. You're kissing in the hallway. Everybody knows. Like...
Exactly. You're not doing a very good job.
Oh, I don't know. I guess it's supposed to be on the down low. I don't know why, but maybe you're not allowed to date co-workers. I'm not sure.
That could be it. And then we sort of see Sam and Dean, and they both kind of figure out at the same time that Dana Schultz is actually an anagram. Mm-hmm. Dean starts to do it in his head, which I thought was very cool, because I'm like, words in my brain don't work. No. Like I have to I have to have it written down, and even when it's written down I still can't read them, so it doesn't really make any difference. And Sam's like writing his out to various different what it could be. So a public defender comes in and starts talking to Dean.
Hey, thanks for the law review, Matlock.
And he's like, well, do you have a pen and paper? He starts to figure out. I did notice that they both, like, in this scene, you see that Jensen and Jared have very similar handwriting. I know they're like blocking letters and they are kind of similar in age. They probably would have been taught the same way. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, oh, this is weird. Apart from Sam does like his like star A's.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I used to sign my name. I used to do a star and do my name. That was the biggest difference. And then Dean shows the lawyer like these anagrams, and he's like, well, does this make sense to you? Mm-hmm. And he says, well, no, but like Ashland means something. It's a street name. And he then starts to ask the lawyer, can you get to Sam? Like, can you get him something? And he's like, yeah, sure, I have to go talk to him anyway, because he's a public defender, so he can, it would make sense that he would represent them both, I guess.
Yeah.
And so Dean writes a note and gives it to the lawyer and tells them, don't worry about me, just go get Sam out, basically. Yeah.
Because the lawyer here says Dean could be facing the death penalty, which I forgot was a thing. Like, and I was like, he really doesn't seem that stressed about it anymore. Like that he's been arrested. Mm-hmm. Like it's very much focused on the case, which I guess is a coping mechanism in itself, right? Like
yes,
let's solve the case. But also, I wonder how relaxed he is because. I wonder how much of a plan they have to get out of these situations. And I guess what I'm saying is like the next scene with Sam kind of sums that up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so before we get there though, Diana's at her computer. She's like typing up some sort of report. And then Dana Schultz keeps showing up on screen and then just disappears. Yeah. A little bit freaked out by that, understandably. Mm-hmm. She didn't do the whole like tap on the screen thing. Like I thought... Like, you know, that usually happens when something doesn't work. They're like, tap, tap, tap. Like, of course that's going to work. If anything, tap your tower, not the screen. There's definitely a lot of, like, fast-paced scenes in this episode. Because now we're at the public defender and Sam. And he hands him a note.
I hope that's meaningful. But I'd like to discuss your case now.
Sure thing, Matlock.
This is definitely Sam acting like Dean and just knowing what his references would be.
Like, he's so in his headspace. Like, so in Dean's headspace. So he's even getting the pop culture references correct. It says Hilts. Like, 2 Hilts. Yeah. Like, Ashland is a street. And then
something like that, yeah.
From McQueen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sam's Hilts and Dean is McQueen in that situation.
Yeah.
Then the next scene is a whole bunch of detectives in the other side of the two-way mirror of the interrogation room, and they're all like buzzing, like, "Oh, something's gonna happen here."
Yeah.
Because they're setting up a video camera in the interrogation room with Dean because it sounds like he's gonna confess, and I guess they're all there to see this confession, which I guess it kind of makes sense as to why they're all there. Because since the Anthony Giles, it was a lawyer, so they would have known who he was. One of their own, they're gonna all rally behind. I wrote, "This is going to go well." Because I forgot what this was going to be until it happens. And I was like, oh, yeah. And it's that classic line.
My name is Dean Winchester. I'm an Aquarius. I enjoy sunsets, long walks on the beach, and frisky women.
It's that classic line. I didn't write it down, but we all know it is.
Yeah, it's the frisky women that gets me.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. I just imagine the Pina Colada song for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what. Like, it's like that making love at midnight, getting caught in the rain. Yeah, I don't know. It's very that for some reason. Yeah, it's just great. And then he tells the truth.
He absolutely tells the truth.
But our working theory is that we're looking for some kind of vengeful spirit.
Excuse me?
You know Casper the Bloodthirsty Ghost?
It's kind of interesting, that sort of shift in attitude is very, very instant. Like, he's messing around, and then suddenly he's like, okay, you want the truth? Here it is. There's a ghost. Monsters exist. And I wonder if he says it like this because there's no way for you not to believe it. Like, he says it with such confidence and such, like, authority, basically, that he's like, this, of course.
Like, yeah, here's the situation. This is what it is. I know he's doing this for a distraction, but I did wonder while watching this as well, if this all goes sideways and they end up not, I don't know what the plan was. Like, how was solving the case going to get him out of prison at this point? They don't know that that in any way is going to be related. So I wonder if he was maybe going for an insanity charge.
Maybe.
Instead of a murder, like, you know, help him out of that situation. Because, yeah, he's got no way of knowing that by getting rid of this ghost, he's somehow magically going to be not arrested for murder anymore.
This is true. This is very true. I mean, I guess the thing with telling the truth like that is that, obviously it does help in the end, for the next scene that happens. Like, I feel like every time that they tell the police that there's things out there, they end up helping them. Weird stuff start happening. They're like, okay, maybe what he's talking about is real.
That's true. So if he's straight up with them and then all this, you know, they start getting haunted in the police station, that at least they can kind of use that to their advantage. I mean, he tells them as well about the shifter. As he's telling all of this truth, like, the detective Pete gets, like, really angry at him and essentially, like, shoves him against the wall and handcuffs him again and says that he's going to cells. So, yeah, it's pretty hardcore. Like, he really shoves him against that wall.
Yeah, definitely. Pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah, me too.
Pretty sure we're not allowed to do that to a civilian or whatever. Even a suspect.
Even a suspect, exactly. But then they go to see Sam and he's gone, and it's like, oh, right, this was a big old distraction. Because you're right, everyone was there to watch him confess. It was a big whole big thing, and he also drew it out for long enough as well for it to be a good distraction. So maybe part of the telling the truth was that as well. Like, this is something that will hold people's attention because they're all going to think I'm crazy. Diane, I noticed that Sam escapes in broad daylight. They look out the window, like down the fire escape, and I'm thinking, like, he's 6 foot something. Did none of the police cars outside watch this man climb out the window?
We're back to climbing up that elevator shaft. He's a sneaky dude.
He is Spider-Man. He has spidey senses.
Yep.
Diane finds the note, and she notices how they signed it, so Hiltz and McQueen.
Hiltz and McQueen? What is that?
Hiltz is Steve McQueen's character in The Great Escape.
If you don't know the reference, Steve McQueen played Captain Hiltz in the movie The Great Escape, so it's kind of signalling. And again, like, Sam has to know Dean's stupid pop culture references to, like, understand that code. Because it's not immediately obvious.
Again, it comes back to what you were saying at the beginning of this episode, that they must discuss some of this beforehand. Like, we use these code names if I need you to do this. So this code name means, like, you need to get out and find out what's going on. Or it could literally be on the fly. Who knows?
It makes sense. They have really long car journeys. What else would you discuss? Like, oh yeah, if we ever get arrested, this is the plan. Let's make a plan for that. Oh, if we ever get tied up and I'm being held hostage, this is the plan. If someone rings, like, this is the code word I'm going to say. Like, all that kind of stuff. They must have discussed it. And they must have discussed it with John as well, I imagine.
Yeah, they must do. They clearly have codes between them because the coordinates are not written like coordinates.
It's interesting, though, that Sam and Dean have their own code, right? Because I don't feel like the pop culture references would have flown with John.
No, not at all.
So...
No, they would have been like military code names, I'm sure.
Exactly. Oh, it's nice. They made up their own little thing.
They probably did this while they were like kids.
Yeah.
In the motels, like, got nothing to do, and they're just watching. They probably watched some sort of like spy TV show, like back in the 60s and stuff, like the daytime TV reruns of the 60s shows and stuff.
Oh, I can see this now. Like, they were sat watching The Great Escape together, and like Dean turns to Sam while they're like little and was like, if we ever get stuck somewhere, I'll write you with these code names. That was my young Dean impression.
It's a very good one.
Thanks. Okay, so Sam escapes, and then we see Detective Diana in the bathroom, and it's all spooky stuff is happening. The taps are turning on by itself. It's getting all like super steamy. We see...
Hell yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt that. Sorry. You're on a roll.
So funny. Yeah, it's getting super steamy, and we see writing on the mirror Dana Schultz, and I like it when they write stuff on mirrors weirdly. I don't know, it's very horror movie. And then she sees the ghost. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say, ghosts have surprisingly good handwriting. Right? They always write very clearly.
Yeah. If I was a ghost, someone would be squinting at that mirror like, what? What's that? Like, is that words?
Is that an A or an E? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
She sees the words on the steamed mirror, and she wipes it away, and then she sees the ghost behind her. And the ghost starts to walk towards her and, like, tries to speak. And all this, like, blood comes down her chest from her neck wound. It's very gross. Very cool, but very gross. And she goes straight to Dean after this happens.
I mean, he was just talking about being a ghost hunter. Or, like, you know, a paranormal investigator, I guess they would see it. So it kind of makes sense. He's really snarky with her, though, isn't he?
I want to know more about that stuff you were talking about earlier.
Time Life. Mysteries of the Unknown. Look it up.
Considering she's coming to him like, oh yeah, I just found out ghosts exist. He's a bit like... Yeah.
But Dean does notice the rope marks on her wrist and starts asking her about what happened. And he's basically tells her, like, if you don't want to die, you need to find Sam. Like, Sam will help you. Sam is the one that's going to save your life.
Yeah.
And then tells her how to find him. Again, this is pointing back to what you were saying, because he says that if we ever get separated, we use this name to find each other in motels. The thing is, though, how does he know which motel he went to? Did he go back to the same motel?
No, they said that they go to the Yellow Pages and they pick the first motel in the Yellow Pages and then sign in by that name. So actually what's really funny is the motel that Sam goes to is called the Aardvark Motel or something, which is like just the first word in the dictionary. So the name they give is Jim Rockford, who is a detective from some old TV show. I couldn't find which TV show, but yeah, he's an old detective. Yeah, I think it's really interesting that he gives Sam up like that. I know we were saying like they're not going to turn on each other, but it's not though.
No, because he's literally saying, like, you are going to die. You need to go there to save yourself.
It's funny because he still has no guarantee that he's going to get out of this situation, and he's sending the detective to save her still. You know, Dean. And also, I guess potentially, I mean, he doesn't know this woman. Like, Sam could have literally saved her life, and she still could decide to arrest him at the end of the day.
This is true.
The woman and the detective in the Benders, I think, was quite close to arresting them still, rather than letting them go on their way. So yeah, it's a lot of trust in people. And it surprises me, especially because Dean does not have much respect for the police.
Not at all. No.
Maybe he only has respect for women detectives.
I mean, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. I think back to all of the other, like the police officers and detectives who become like friends are all women. They're all women.
Most of the police that help them out so far have been women as well. You know, the Benders, the detective here. I'm sure there's another example somewhere. I think that does change a little bit later on in the seasons, but yeah, interesting one. It probably means nothing.
It could also just be a little bit of like a representation thing. To be like, well, not every detective is a man. It can also be women.
Yeah, as well as like how women are portrayed on TV. So, you know, a woman detective is maybe more likely to be more empathetic and possibly believe people a bit more.
That's true.
Readily than a male detective. I mean, this is all absolutely stereotyping and not true.
Speculation on that.
Yeah. So we see Diana turn up at Sam's motel room. He convinces her to talk to him once he realises the situation, because obviously he knows that Dean must have sent her there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, and that he wouldn't have sent her there for no reason. I love this bit. Like, he shows her the research that he's got. She's like, how did you get those?
You know what? Here. I've been researching every girl who's ever died or gone missing from Ashland Street.
How'd you get those? Those are from crime scenes and booking photos.
You have your job, I have mine.
He then basically, he tells her what they need to do, because she identifies, her name's Claire, and tells her that they need to go salt and burn the bones.
See if we can find her body.
What?
Well, we gotta salt and burn her bones. It's the only way to put her spirit to rest.
Of course it is.
That's it.
They're so direct in this episode. I kind of love it, because normally when they're talking to like civilians, I guess, they're very like, this is, you know, softly, like, this is what we need to do. This is why we do it. And all through this episode, both Sam and Dean are like, nah, it's just how it is. Like, this is it. Yeah, we're just going to go like burn this body, like, because we need to deal with it.
Basically, yeah. Cope, as you say.
I really like this pair up of Sam and Diana, actually. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. Do you know what? It's nice to see Sam do some things without Dean.
It is. Mm-hmm. And not be complaining about it. It's more like he understands that this is the job. He's not worried about Dean as well, which is really bizarre. He's literally very focused on the case, which I guess now that he has like a police officer on his side, he's probably less worried, because if he can prove that this person was murdered in the same way and all this other stuff, that's going to eventually lead to his innocence.
That's true.
But okay, so this whole episode begs the question why they don't set up a network with police. Because every single time they encounter the police in a way that they can get one-to-one with them, they always turn them, right?
And I think this has come back down to it, because I think we talked about this in the Benders, that the police must know about supernatural things. Some people in the organisation must know about supernatural stuff, because of all the stuff they see, all the crime scenes they investigate. Think how many unexplained crime scenes there are in the supernatural universe.
And it begs the question, because when the Men of Letters is introduced, I want to say that they were in connection with the police. That before Abaddon wiped them all out. I mean, again, it's a secret society, so they probably do have little tinfoil hat-ish, but secret societies usually have pull in places, whether it's government, police, all that kind of stuff. And I swear the like British branch of the Men of Letters had something to do with the police, or they had like a branch of like a lettered, like the CIA and FBI and all that kind of stuff.
I imagine kind of like Unit from Doctor Who, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of like some people are in the know and know to contact them if weird supernatural stuff happens, but generally people don't know about them. So you probably would have men of letters in the police who catch wind of the like weird goings on and then send a team to go like clean it up and investigate it before civilians catch on to it. So but then obviously that all went away in like the 50s, 60s. So there's been this whole stretch of time where this stuff maybe wasn't getting mopped up. So I do wonder, you know, there's a generation of police officers who didn't have like the men of letters around. Did they have to deal with more supernatural stuff? And like I said, there are like campfire stories of police working with hunters and things, because they are quite ready to believe them. So I think there must be some kind of like whispers about things going on.
There must be, definitely. I could be making up this part of the story, but I do feel like there is almost competition between the men of letters and hunters. Like there's some sort of tension between the two, right? Like they both feel superior to the other ones, which is what makes Sam and Dean so unique, and like the legacies. Sorry, we're giving away huge plot points, by the way. These are massive, massive plot points.
I'll put big spoilers on this week.
Yeah. I should have probably said that before I got into it, but well, we're here now.
It makes sense. Again, like talking future things, it surprised me that I feel Jodie and Donna were onto something. I think, you know, I feel like that could have been a really good story arc for them of really building that network in the police. And I feel like it was touched on briefly. Yeah. And then didn't really go anywhere, which is such a shame. No. So that could have been such a good story arc. I'm sure we'll complain about it again.
Well, so do you remember that backdoor pilot that they did?
Yeah.
Can you imagine like if they had done a backdoor pilot for Jodie and Donna's story?
I can't talk about this, it's too painful because
I know.
It should have been. Like it should have been. Anyway. Okay. Alright. Tangent over. So Sam and Diana go to the warehouse. It's on Ashland. I can't remember why they go to the warehouse.
So I think it's because Claire was a drug addict / drug dealer. And so I think this is where they had arrested her at one time.
Oh, right.
I think that's what it was. And it's connected to Claire rather than anything else.
Sam's asking if Diana knew her, like she thinks she ever arrested her. And she says that her and Pete used to work narcotics, but she doesn't remember ever arresting her. They kind of have a wander, right?
They split up, basically. And Diana's walking into a room and Claire is there, but she's not attacking. She's just sort of walking towards her, trying to speak again.
Yeah.
And then Sam shows up and the ghost disappears. He sees, like, Ashland and SUP.
Yeah.
Which is where those extra letters were coming for shops. And then, the biggest snafu of Supernatural so far...
I love how mad you are about this. Like, it's such a small thing.
It's not a small thing, though. It's such a big thing. Like, something that they could have easily fixed or not done. Or... So, I'm also really not good at explaining what the situation is. So you'll have to go look at it. But they're looking at a window, and light is coming through, and Ashland's sup is in shadow with the light coming around it. They turn around, and on the wall, Ashland's sup is now lit up. So that doesn't make sense because it has to be a cutout on the window, not blocked letters.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I understand why it's annoying. It's just like...
it just doesn't make sense. Like, choose one or the other.
Yeah.
Or don't have it at all.
They did it for the aesthetic. That's what they do everything in Supernatural.
I know. But it was dumb and annoying and such an easy fix.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
I know.
So the reason why it's lit up is because for some reason they decide that, well, that's when Sam pulls out his EMF reader and like explains exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. And he says that some bones give off EMF.
Yeah.
Which I think is the first time we've really heard that.
Maybe. I feel like maybe in Asylum they were looking for remains, weren't they, when trying to use EMF for that? I don't know. I can't remember.
He approaches where the wall is now lit up. And it's in the red, so it obviously means there's something behind the wall. And he uses like a pipe to knock in the wall, which is really funny because he still has his arm in a cast.
Yeah.
And he can't really do it. And this next little like dialogue between the two of them is great.
It's so good.
You know, this is bothering me.
Well, you are digging up a corpse.
No, not that.
It's pretty poor for the course, actually.
Just that small section, I was just like,
Yeah.
and she's like, oh, okay, that doesn't bother you. Okay, all right.
He's so matter of fact. Right, okay. I just need to, like, that line for me, I was like, that could have easily been said by Sam in like season 14, right? In
Yes.
that exact tone of voice.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sam Winchester. Like, he's
Yes.
finally arrived. Like,
Definitely.
it took a little bit, but
We got there. We got there in the end.
the hair is right, the lines are right, the attitude is right.
Yeah, the competence is there.
Yeah, the competence. Because at his core, Sam is just as snarky as Dean often.
Oh yeah.
And I love to see it. I love to see it.
Like Sam is snarky in like not sort of in a contempt way, but not in like a demeaning contempt way.
Yeah, I think this is very matter of fact. Like he doesn't often put up with people rubbish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love
It's
to
great.
see it. Yeah.
It is great.
I mean, they're knocking down a wall here. They do find a body in the wall. I think Sam explains that the thing that was bothering him, right, is that the spirit didn't attack her.
Yeah.
It was just trying to communicate with her, which they kind of saw before in Asylum as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did see a reference that maybe this was Edgar Allan Poe, because he was from Baltimore. And obviously, like, there's a lot of bodies in walls and things in Poe. So, but I don't know, it possibly, but it does also make sense with the window and stuff. It kind of all works out nicely.
Yeah. The thing that stuck out to me was that it looked like he was having trouble with the pole, but then like he uses his elbow to get the rest of the bricks out. So it's like, is it difficult or is it not? They see that it's a wrapped body and they pull it out and it's Claire. Diana notices a necklace on the body, and she sort of says, well, this is one of a kind, it's made on this jeweler. And Sam's kind of like, how do you know that? He's like, well, I have one too. And she pulls out this necklace and tells him that Pete gave it to her.
Yeah. So from this, Sam kind of summarizes that he thinks that Claire is a death omen rather than a vengeful spirit. So like a ghost that warns people of their impending death.
Basically the Mothman. I don't know if you know that. There are a lot of parallels because, again, Mothman has red eyes, which I thought was really weird that they focused so much on that. And then when they actually showed her, like, her eyes weren't really red. They were just sort of like, the makeup was underneath the eyes. And I was like, that's such a weird thing to, like, that's the thing that they point out, and that she was a dark figure with red eyes. Mm-hmm. That's exactly... Sorry, everybody, but that's exactly what the Mothman is.
Oh my gosh, they were making a Mothman, like, reference. They made.
There you go.
I love that.
Diana says something that she had noticed that drugs had gone missing from the evidence, like, locker.
Yeah.
And now she suspects that it was Pete giving it to Claire to then sell on the streets.
Yeah, he's a bad dude, is what she's getting at.
Yep. Which is where Baltimore being corrupt. Sorry, Baltimore.
Yeah.
I've never been, but I probably never will.
Yes, so obviously with this revelation that Pete is the bad guy, we see him driving a prison transport van, and Dean is in the back, and Dean's pretty suspicious about why they're going at night and it's just Pete, and Dean knows this is a bad situation. And again, like, he's been cocky all through this episode in the interview room, but again looks worried here.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody would, because he's obviously handcuffed in the back.
Yeah.
He's being transferred at 2:00 in the morning. I think that's what they say.
Yeah.
And, Dean is very suspicious.
This can't be good.
He's saying, that's kind of weird that you're taking me 800 miles to, which, by the way, I don't think is 800 miles. I think it's more close to like 900 to St. Louis in the middle of the night. But they're not really on any highway. They're sort of like on back roads in the forest. So I think that would make anybody nervous. And Dean starts does start to make jokes a little bit.
Yeah.
And I guess that just irritates Pete too much because he then basically reveals his whole operation to him.
Yeah, and tells him what's up. Oh, I was so worried for Dean here. Like, I knew it was going to be fine.
Yeah.
But it's stressful.
Mm-hmm. Because he pulls him out, like, they stop. Pete pulls Dean out of the truck and basically has him on his knees with a gun to his face.
Yeah.
And luckily, Sam and Diana show up.
They managed to track the van by the LoJack.
Yeah.
Fine.
I don't know what that is. It's probably like a radio of some kind, like GPS.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how, like, Dean went from, like, murder suspect to victim very quickly here.
Yeah. So basically Pete was a bad dude. He was stealing the drugs and making money, and Claire wanted to pull out, so he killed her. The lawyer was cleaning his money, and he wanted to pull out too, so he killed him. And I'm not sure why he killed Karen. Probably because she might have known or something.
Yeah, it was a dumb reason. Like, oh, he probably told her what was going on, so I had to kill her too. Like, it was really, like, flimsy excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's murder, but you know what I mean.
I did like Dean's subtle head shake because obviously Pete's going off on one, having a bit of a breakdown. Dean knows that Sam's a good shot, so he could take him out quite easily.
Yeah.
But tells him no. In the end, it's Diana who shoots Pete in, like, the leg, I guess, because he kind of falls to the ground. Dean's roll away here was hilarious.
He does another little roly-poly.
Yeah. Just, like, his gymnastics is coming through again, because he just, like, flips himself. Like, I don't even know how you do that. Like,
I need to get that with just like, bye.
I'm out.
Out. Yeah, I love that.
And then Claire shows up in front of Pete and, like, scares the bejesus out of him. And now that we know it's a death omen, kind of know what's going to happen here. And Diana shoots Pete through the chest and kills him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, she tried not to shoot him. She shot him in the leg first, and he went down, and then he scuffled with her and got back up and was, like, being a bad dude.
As soon as she saw that necklace, I'm pretty sure she was over him.
I mean, Claire was a good distraction as well. I know, obviously, she was appearing because she's the Mothman, but, like, because the death was about to occur. But also, go Ghost Claire.
Yeah. So then we come back after an ad break. Yeah, time is completely wonky. They said it was 2 a.m. Nothing has changed. There's no police or anything. Did they just stand around for like 4 hours?
Yes.
Because it's completely daytime. Yeah. This is where the, like, meta Chuck saying, "Have you not noticed the time?" stuff kind of kicked in for me, for sure.
Would have worked, yeah.
And again, like, Diana basically lets them go.
What now, officer?
Pete did confess to me. He screwed up both your cases royally. I'd say there's a good chance that we can get your cases dismissed.
You could take care of that for us?
I hope so. But the St. Louis murder charges? That's another story. I can't help you. Unless I just happened to turn my back and he walked away. I could tell him that the suspects escaped.
Again, who knows what came of that, like, exhuming the corpse of shapeshifter Dean. So...
And now that they know that Dean's actually alive.
That's true.
Well.
He would have got fingerprinted and stuff as well again, so it's obvious that he's alive. And I guess for Diana, she has all the evidence. She's still got Claire's body. They didn't burn it, I don't think. I don't know.
That was my question. Like, do you think they would have gone back to burn her body? Probably not. They're probably not allowed to. Maybe Diana goes back and does that because that's what Sam had told her to do, to get rid of a ghost.
I don't think so, though, because they actually asked her about Claire, and they said, oh, she's probably at rest now because, like, her murderer was killed, so she's probably moved on. So I don't think they needed to bother assaulting and burning the body.
But, okay, coming back to In My Time of Dying, you only get one chance to go, right? That's what it sounds like. You only get one chance to go with death, or with a Reaper. So has she missed her chance and turned into a vengeful spirit eventually?
See, ghosts are tough. I feel like there is an episode where they help a ghost move on instead of salting and burning them. So I
That
think
makes
it's
sense.
possible, kind of Casper vibes.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice of Diana to let them go, because even Sam says, "Are you sure you could lose your job? Why are you arguing with her on this?" But like, she says, "Oh, I'll sleep better knowing you guys are out there." So she's fully on the Hunter train.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right. They should have collaborated with some of the good police they come across, the ones who are actually believe
Open.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's the difficult thing, is like finding those people. The only way that they could really do this is if every single time there's a case, they ring the like local police department and be like, "We suspect there's something paranormal going on."
Yeah. I imagine for a lot of the contacts, they do have contacts for people, because we know that they have different phones that they leave, and they sometimes get phone calls back with those contacts that they've made. So I wonder if that's the case for a lot of these. They do have some people in the departments who think they're X-Files or something, you know, so no, they can ring them if something weird's going down. I think here they probably didn't leave their contact information with her because the murder charges.
I also think back to Bloodlust, and when they told the local sheriff there about the mutilated cows, how he kind of laughed them off too. So like, not everybody is gonna be on board.
But this is it. I think there are definitely cases in the show where the people in authority do see the supernatural thing. I think in those cases they must leave them some kind of fake card.
Yeah, they must do.
Has whatever alias they're using on it, and it just says like Monster Hunter.
Again, Dean asks about the Impala. This is such a Bender's moment, because I think in that one Sam asked for a ride back to town, and she's like, "Hell no." This time Dean asks about the Impala.
Hey, wouldn't happen to know where my car is by chance?
It's at the impound yard on Robertson. Don't even think about it.
Sam's like, "Well, we're pretty good at improvising." He's like, "Oh yeah, I can see. I can tell." So maybe all of this stuff was improvised, like the Hilts and McQueen was actually improvised.
Yeah, I mean, Dean still has to know that Sam's going to get that reference.
Yeah,
well, they know each other well enough to know that. That's true. And, I mean, the final lines of this episode, I mean, we didn't mention it all the way through, but they make it very clear here that the Detective Diana is the actress from The Exorcist. She is the one who is possessed in The Exorcist.
She's Reagan.
Nice lady.
Yeah, for a cop? Does she look familiar to you?
No, why?
I don't know. Anyway, are you hungry?
No.
Yeah, for some reason I could really go for some pea soup.
I didn't flag it at all. I've never seen The Exorcist. It's one of those movies that I know if I watch it, it's going to stay with me forever, and I just kind of don't want to.
I never watched it either, actually, which is surprising for me, but I feel it's super cheesy now. We probably should just watch it.
It is super cheesy, but it's still like, ugh. Like I've seen all the like freaky scenes like multiple times and all that kind of stuff, but I think in the context of the whole movie, I would probably still get freaked out.
Fair.
I actually put the subtitles on because they say it so quietly, and I was like, when he said pea soup, I was like, why is that? That's so specific.
Yeah.
And then I looked up who she was, and I was like, oh.
It's such a good reference. It's really good. I really liked it. I like when they do those. Again, like, breaking the fourth wall. What is it in this episode? Because that's a joke that that joke is there for the audience. Like,
yes.
I mean, obviously, but at the same time, because it's supernatural, it's not just... Right, I don't know. I can't start with this.
Because like also in that universe, so obviously the actress's name is Linda Blair.
Yeah.
In reality, she continued to be an actress, but maybe in that reality, she stopped being an actress and became a detective.
Or maybe she just really looks like that.
Or she really Because I think back to Ocean's 11, I think it is, where Julia Roberts is like recognized by Bruce Willis, and so Julia Roberts pretends to be Julia Roberts.
It's confusing. It's confusing. I think there's a case somewhere in Supernatural. One, they mention some kind of show or movie that definitely has one of the actors in it. So at no point did they think like, oh, this person looks like this person from this thing we mentioned. It happens a lot, and I do enjoy it, but I especially enjoy it in Supernatural just because of the whole Chuck thing.
Yeah.
And it adds such an extra layer to it that it drives me absolutely insane to think about. My brain can't deal with it. Like, I can't think about it in those terms. I just feel like my head's going to explode.
But that was this week's episode. Like,
Yeah.
in terms of the overarching story of Supernatural, it's not there in this one. This was just like a filler, fun thing. A little bit of insight into like other aspect of their universe, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, it was fun. It was definitely
I
a fun one.
loved it, actually. I did. It was really, it was a nice change of pace, I think.
Now this next one's a good one. It's Crossroad Blues.
I'm excited.
Yes.
I'm doing a little dance.
It's gonna be really good. I really like this episode.
Me too.
There's just, I think it's a mixture of like mixing up times and just like the introduction of demons in this way. I don't know. It's a good one. It's a really good one.
Yeah, I'm really, really looking forward to it.
I guess who wrote this one?
Who?
Sarah Gamble.
We keep coming back to her.
I mean, I understand why she was eventually brought on as showrunner
I do
because she
too.
did write so many good episodes, but I don't think she was a good showrunner.
It's a Stephen Moffat situation, right? Where he was really good at writing individual episodes. Think about all the episodes that he wrote for Doctor Who, like Blink, some of the best episodes of Doctor Who. And so, of course, it makes sense. Like, oh, we'd love a season of all those really good episodes. And then, like, sometimes people just can't bring it all together in one big story arc. They're better at those one-offs, and that's just the way it is. And I think that's the case with Sarah Gamble as well.
Which is unfortunate.
It is, actually, because she's written some really great episodes of Supernatural. So, you may have noticed a little aesthetic change on our podcast this week. We are so excited for this. We've been waiting to show these new logo designs for a couple of weeks now. These were designed by our really good friend on Tumblr. Their name is The Pixel Agora, and I will link their Tumblr and Ko-fi in the description. So please go and check out their artwork, and if you can tip them as well, like, please do, because they make amazing comics. Art is beautiful, supernatural based, amazing. And also they do commissions as well. So thank you so much for the designs for our podcast. They are beautiful. We love them. And we hope you guys enjoy them too. If you have any kind of feedback on these, I will pass it on because we are really, really happy with them.
Yeah, they are such an amazing artist. Yeah, I just love it. And on top of that, we are actually going to use their designs as new stickers on our Redbubble, which you can find in the description of our socials as well. You can find us on Tumblr, you can find us on Instagram. We are on Facebook as well. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. So come follow us on any of those platforms, whichever one you're most comfortable with, and leave us messages. We do read them. We love hearing from you guys. We also have a Ko-fi, and again, it just goes to our audio equipment. No pressure. If you wanna purchase something, you can. If you don't want to, just listen to us. We're here for your Sunday entertainment.
That's so true. Yeah, nice this week. We had a lot to announce. So yes, that's the end of the episode. This week we spent some time in a jail cell. I don't know how that happened in Purgatory, but it did. And then we escaped out of a fire escape in broad daylight. So we'll keep on going, and next time I hope we find our way out. Out.
Sure, out.
Bye.
Bye.